Hey, Ray from Pitcher Partners. One of the big questions I get from founders, investors, and CFOs is why would we hire an interim rather than just going straight to a permanent hire? So in this video, I'll walk through some scenarios when an interim makes sense and how to think about value rather than just cost. So with that very point, start with the real question: is this about value or cost? Hiring an interim can give you expert impact quickly without that longer term commitment. So the day rate can look expensive, however, the better question is what's the value that individual brings? To give you an example, so if you were to bring in a finance specialist on, for example, £1,000 per day, who can help you unlock £500,000 worth of R&D tax credits, the return on investment remains pretty clear. It pretty much answers itself. So let's break down the main situations where an interim might be the right move. You need senior firepower, but you can't afford it permanently. So a classic scenario: you're growing quickly, or you're raising debt or equity. You need proper board level finance inputs, but a full-time CFO salary isn't realistic just yet. In that case, an interim CFO or a senior finance leader would be an ideal solution. They can shape the story for lenders or funds to get you investor ready. They can help you avoid rookie mistakes without being a permanent line on the P&L. Sometimes that then transitions into a part-time or 1 day a month board role once things are stable. Another example might be that investors are looking for more finance maturity. So maybe you're raising from private equity or venture capital, they want to see more structure. So an interim can bring proper reporting framework. It can design or tweak the financial model, put in place basic controls and governance, and then I guess ultimately help you to hire a strong permanent number two or number one in finance. They don't need to be there forever. They can set it up, make sure it works, and then stay involved at a board level if needed. But again, there is a flexibility there. Another reason might be that you need to stabilise, triage, or protect value within your business. But perhaps the business is a bit wobbly at the moment. Maybe performance has dipped, reporting isn't as reliable as it needs to be, or there's tension on the leadership team. Putting somebody out of a stable permanent role and into uncertainty can be tricky and sometimes unfair. It's certainly something that I would advise against. Bringing in a short-term interim is a smarter way to stabilise the situation, fix urgent issues, support a fundraiser or a refinancing situation, buy yourself time to make the right permanent hire. If there's suspected fraud, poor cash control, or something doesn't smell right, an interim can do a targeted and independent review. That can be faster and much more effective than commissioning a full-blown IBR immediately from one of the bigger firms. Maybe you've got a project that requires specialist skills, things like maybe an ERP or a systems implementation, fundraising exercise again, M&A, buy or sell side, integration after an acquisition, building a proper forecasting or business intelligence setup. These are naturally project-based with a clear start, middle and end. And that's exactly what interims are for. You scope the outcomes early at the start, they deliver, and then they step away. A quick tip here: make sure knowledge transfer is part of the brief. Get your permanent team involved in scoping, rollout and handover so that the interim actually leaves a legacy, models, documentation and a way of working that lives on after they've gone. It could be that you're perhaps bridging the gap between a permanent hire or bridging the gap to a permanent hire, in fact. So senior finance hires take time. You want to find the right person, both from a skill set point of view and from a chemistry point of view for the board. You might need to run a full-blown proper search process. You might want to meet a range of candidates, or even navigate a long notice period for the right candidate. An interim lets you slow down the permanent decision in a good way. You don't have to panic hire just to get somebody into the seat. They hold the fort, keep things moving, and sometimes help to even define the shape of the permanent role because they're experienced. So quick clarifiers how the interim actually works. Just to clear up a few practical points, minimum periods would be agreed at the start. They stay while they're adding value and not just for the sake of it. Hours are generally outcome-led, so usually full-time during key phases with some flexibility around the edge. Equipment, many interims will use their own kit. However, if you operate in a regulated sector or where data integrity is really important to you, you might supply the hardware. Day rate versus interim, day rate versus fixed term contract. Project-based, outcome-led assignments often suit day rates. Ongoing employee-style fixed-term contracts are probably the more appropriate vehicle. So why hire an interim? Because you get senior expertise exactly when you need it for exactly as long as you need it. And you only keep them while they're actually adding value to your business. And if you're weighing up whether an interim might be right for your situation, feel free to get in touch and we can have a conversation about that. Always happy to talk it through.